Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aimee Talks Too Much podcast. I'm actually really excited for this episode because I think this is going to be the first episode that is a full topic episode. I am going to start a little bit just talking about the week that I've had, and then we'll get into our topic, which is makeup, which I realize I haven't already said. My week this week has been an interesting one, and the reason I wanted to talk about it was because I just kind of wanted to get it off my chest. I don't know if anybody else finds this, but recently, at least like moving to uni, moving away from my home, making new friends, you finding my feet kind of thing, I found that like old tensions have been coming to the surface, but I think it's a good thing. Like, I think that my body and my brain are like, oh, you're in a really good place. Let's try and get you to like heal from the things that you kind of repressed like a year or 2 years ago. And so recently I've been just kind of like losing my mind over certain things, but not losing my mind. It's very difficult to explain, and I don't know if it makes any sense, but almost reliving things and reevaluating them and seeing them in a completely different light than I did originally. And as I've been doing this, people from chapters ago have started reaching out to me, and it's very confusing. A lot of people believe if if you think about things, if you speak about things, you kind of manifest them to life. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it is very strange, like a very crazy coincidence that so many things that have been bothering me have recently either been fixed or they've like happened again, or that person's reached out. I feel like what I'm saying is so messy right now, but essentially like this has been happening for really the last month, but in the last week it's really started to, like, my brain's really started to process everything. I feel like one way that I know that I'm getting better with these things is one instance that I had was finding out that somebody that had wronged me in a lot of ways, had crossed a lot of boundaries with me, had made me feel uncomfortable as a woman that I had given a lot of grace to and had given the benefit of the doubt over and over and over again because I just had too much empathy for them, was talking about me and about things going on in my life and honestly just giving their like not needed opinion. Now, they didn't say it to me, obviously, because they knew that that would garner a very negative reaction, but they did say it to someone else, and I found out, and usually that shit would like make my heart drop, make me spiral for a week, like I wouldn't be able to really process it. But strangely enough, like when I heard about this, it's not that I didn't feel anything, but I kind of just was like, okay, okay, like that's fine. And my initial reaction was to reach out to that person and say, hey, I know you did this. They took no accountability. And I thought, you know what, this person's just not my problem. I don't know why I made them my problem for such a long time after all the shit that they put me through and they did to me. So, something I would never do in the past, I actually hit the block button. Like, I can't explain it. I'm so anti-block. I really do believe that any issue that you have with anyone can be sorted out verbally. You can talk it through, and maybe you guys can be friends again, or worst case scenario, you can just walk on with life like amicably. But I'm starting to realize that there's certain people in life that they don't want to leave amicably, and you can't force them to. And if they're gonna be shit people, how many times do you have to get burnt before you like finally cut it loose, you know? So that happened to me this week. Well, that was like one example. I've had a couple people reach out to me about the podcast, which has been really nice, and I think that that's really helped in terms of silencing the noise of other people reaching out to me being like, I remembered you were alive, and yeah, I did a shit thing to you, but I'm sorry. And it's like, ugh, I don't know how I feel right now. And also just like other friendships that I thought were dead in the water maybe a year ago have like started rekindling. And it's like hard to just figure out what people's motives are. And it sounds shit, like you want to hope people's motives are just to be a good person and be kind and like want to actually be your friend. But from the issues I've had in the past, I have to be so like careful and so thoughtful now when it comes to friendships because I've been done dirty. I really don't want to put myself through that again. because I don't think I deserve to be put through that again. Not that I deserved it in the first place. At least the first time though, it helped me to grow and it helped me to change and it helped me to be maybe less naive. But this time I'm like, I do not deserve this. And I also like am mature enough that I can see that this is a bad situation that I need to get out of. So yeah, this is my little ramble, but this week has just honestly been me like reliving. I would say the last, like, anything that happened within the last 5 years of my life, which is crazy. Like, that's from 15 to 20. But it's just been me, like, reliving. I wouldn't say they're, like, traumas, but they definitely changed the way that my brain works. And some of them are traumatic. And I would like to do an episode, and let me know if you guys are interested, on maybe the things that I've overcome in terms of friendships, but also in terms of even like how men have treated me in the past. That's not even boyfriends, by the way, or like relationship kind of thing. That's just like men, how like I've been treated because I've been stalked. I've also been put in a lot of uncomfortable positions that a lot of women get put into, and I've had that narrative flipped on me, and it's been like there's just so many like difficult topics that I would love to talk about, and like my experience on them and how they've helped me kind of survive today. But let me know if that's something that interests you. If not, honestly, if you don't want to hear the trauma dump, we can leave that. But yeah, I just want to talk about that. And that's what's been going on with my week. And as tricky as it is to navigate, I think I'm learning that it's actually important to get it off your chest. Because in the past, I would talk about it with my friends, but then maybe my friends weren't the ones, to talk about it with. So at least talking about it with loads of different people, I can just get something off my chest without maybe getting like a direct response back, because I don't know if I really need one right now. Okay, let's actually get into like the bread and butter of this episode. It's going to be a cozy one, so grab a blanket and just listen to me ramble on about my makeup evolution, if you will. And it's also going to be kind of talking about my journey into almost femininity, if you will, and figuring out what I liked and how I didn't care what other people wanted me to look like. So I'm kind of excited to talk about it. But I want to start obviously from the start. So the reason that I thought of this topic was I saw a Snapchat memory a couple days ago, and it was from when I was 14, so it was from 6 years ago. And I was taking my makeup off after a school day, and I had like written in the text box, "This is the worst part of my day." Right? And to tell the truth, it always was. Nowadays, as like an adult, I take my makeup off, I feel free. I'm like, oh my God, my skin gets to breathe. This feels so good. But back then, makeup for me at 14 was one of the only ways that I truly felt pretty, or I felt societally acceptable, because I had scarring, I had acne like so many teenagers do. But when you have it, you feel like you're the only one in the world. And it made me sad, but it also made me think about the journey I went on. Like 14 wasn't even the year that I started wearing makeup. I had started wearing makeup since I was like a young kid. But it was really like in the last decade that my relationship with makeup just have gone through so many chops and changes, and I don't know, the evolution has been kind of crazy, so I figured this would be fun to talk about. Before we get started on the rest of my kind of makeup story, I want to give you a little history lesson on makeup. Feel free to skip this if you're not interested, but I think it's important to know where makeup derives from, because I think a lot of people act like it's a new topic, and it's not. Makeup has been around for years, in fact, since 6000 BC in the Egyptian era. So let's not act like makeup is some new concept, because it's just not. In fact, back then, makeup was worn by both men and women of all different social classes, and not only that, it was used as evidence of wealth and to appeal to the gods. Makeup itself has had a big evolution. You think from fucking 6000 BC, makeup has changed so much over the years. It was in ancient Greece in, I think, 1000 BC when makeup actually started to shift from a social status marking to something that represented femininity. And even after that, like so many like Tudor kings and princes or princesses, like a lot of different people in royalty or higher class still wore makeup, men and women included. So makeup has been around for ages, and I think a lot of people act like, oh, like a new generation, they wear so much makeup, or not like the old generation. But it's not true. So whilst makeup has been consistent for years and years and years, it has had its falls and rises in popularity. But that's my little history lesson over. How did I get into makeup? So I would say I got into makeup like how a lot of young women or even young boys get into makeup. Seeing my mum do her makeup, wanting to imitate her and imitate the older women in my life, and also kind of having like my presence be based around it. For example, with like my nan or my aunt. So you would get like your childhood, like your Claire's makeup palettes or your like Coca-Cola lip balms and things like that. And even though it wasn't real makeup really, and even though it wasn't very serious, it was still like the gateway. It was like the opening of my adventure with makeup, right? And like I loved wearing it. I felt so mature, and I think the first time that I started wearing it was to imitate older people, and I wanted to feel older and I wanted to feel grown up, and oh, I'm a woman, like I'm like every other woman, even though I was like fucking 7 years old, but it's you want to feel girly and different and look nice, because you see these women in your life and you think, oh, they look so pretty. Like, I would love to have big fluffy eyelashes like them. So I think that that's how I started getting into makeup, was very much like little Claire's makeup kits when I was younger. And also my nan would always buy me like little makeup sets and or even play makeup sets, and I would have them at her house, and I spent a lot of time with my nans. I think that that's very much what started my makeup journey. Also, when I first started using maybe not Claire's makeup was when I was about 11 years old, when I started secondary school. I got acne quite young. I also went through like puberty very young. Like I had a lot of hormonal, not issues, but I was very hormone from like a young age. I started my period quite young, and so because of that, I had acne and I had maybe like a couple other hormonal issues. And so going into secondary school, I was very, very insecure. Like I was very scared. This is a new place. This is big school. This is a place where the kids might judge you and you don't know them, and what are they going to say about your appearance? So my mom and my family like understood that I needed a bit of support in that way. And I remember my mom being very like against foundation at 11, which so valid, Cheryl. I'm so sorry I ever like fought you on that for years. I was like, Mom, please let me just get the foundation, like it'll cover it properly. But she was very much like, no, you are a child. You're a child, like you're not wearing that. But my mom got me this like not sponsored, but like this, it was like a witch hazel concealer. And the idea was this concealer was meant to conceal spots but also help heal them. And I just remember as a kid like using it, and it would cause like an orange overcast on my spots. And so it just ended up looking like I had like a bunch of orange circles on my face. It looked so bad, but I felt like it looked better than maybe a red pussy thing on my face. And I'd go into school and like it didn't look right, it didn't look right at all. But I went to school anyway, hoping that people wouldn't notice, and of course they did. But one thing that I did notice was the questions shifted from, oh, you got spots or what's on your face. It shifted to, why are you wearing makeup? Which at the time I didn't mind as much. I'd rather hear that than, what's that massive red canyon on your face. I also spoke about spending a lot of time with my nan. My nan, from day one, I think has been a very glamorous woman. She still does her makeup, she dyes her hair, she wears good jewelry, beautiful clothes, and she was very happy to indulge in my makeup addiction, if you will. And I remember her buying me like a Maybelline BB cream, right? Low key, I'm thinking about reinvesting in it because it was so like lightweight. It was so good. Again, not sponsored, but it was so good. I remember wearing that, and that was like the closest thing I got to foundation. I think that I was allowed that from maybe 12 or 13, like a year up. And my mum was not impressed at the start. Like, I remember her being like, I said that you couldn't have foundation and I told your nan that. And I was like, well, Nan said it's just BB cream, which is just tinted moisturizer, which technically it was. But I was still breaking the rules because my mum didn't want a full coverage thing. Even though it didn't really cover everything, I remember it made me feel a lot better than the little witch hazel orange blobs on my face. And so I started going to school with my BB cream. And the BB cream, you gotta remember, I was only wearing BB cream. I wasn't setting it, so I was going into school all one colour, all shiny, and I thought, I look so good. I'm just glowing. No, it didn't look good. Someone should have powdered me, someone should have put a bit of blush on me, broke up the colours a bit. But obviously as a kid, my my parents and even my grandparents, they wanted to be careful with what might upset my mum and dad, so they couldn't give me much more than what I had. And so then I went through this era where I just looked like very almost like uncanny valley because I was all one shade. But listen, I thought I looked great, and at the time I had a lot of confidence and I didn't feel worried about what other people thought about me when I had this on. I actually felt invincible, if anything. It made me feel like I could sit in class and focus and not worry about, is my skin looking really bad? Is everybody looking at my skin? Is everybody talking about my skin? And listen, I'm sure if I had worn makeup, nobody would have talked about it anyway. Everybody had acne of some form at some point, but it was that fear that I could possibly be a negative talking point for any group that I just decided that the makeup worked better. As I got older and older, like I said, the BB cream was, and the witch hazel and like the Claire's makeup, everything had become this gateway, this opening into the makeup world, right? And I was thriving. I started to become a Superdrug fiend. I was going in all the time to figure like out what products I liked, what shades I liked. Did I want to try this next or that next? And I remember deciding to try mascara next, I believe. Mascara and like eyebrow pencils. And so slowly I started structuring my face more. So I would, make my lashes look longer, make my eyebrows look more defined. By the time I was in year 10, I had started adding blush and lip gloss. And then by the time I was in year 11, I was wearing eyeliner. And don't get me wrong, my school had a no makeup policy, but at the time, I felt like I could not leave the house without a full face of makeup. I would wear a full beat to the gym because I didn't feel like I could leave the house without it. I thought even if I had just worn foundation, I wouldn't look good enough and I would be judged by the other people that would see me and they would think, oh, I don't know, she's so ugly or she looks horrible. These insecurities ate at me. I found my time being consumed by makeup. Sometimes I would have a day where I'd go into school and I would think, oh, my makeup looks so good. I look so fresh, I'm glowing. And then other days I'd come in thinking, oh my God, I look horrible. I look so different. Everybody's going to notice and think, like, what's Aimee done to her face? And it was just not true. I looked the same every single day. But yeah, I was so worried about people's perceptions of me and what the people in my school might think if I, didn't cover this spot properly on Tuesday. And so from, I would say, year 8 until the end of year 9, I was still having like, just eyebrow pencil, mascara. And then from about year 10 to the end of year 11, my makeup was still technically, I would say, light. So it was still light. It was, I think actually it might have been Body Shop foundation. I begged my mom. I was like, please, enough with the BB cream. I'm a grown up now. I think it was for my 15th or 16th, but I want to lean to say 15th, that my mom took me into the Body Shop and she was like, fine, we will get you a foundation, but I want it to be, free of these like perfumes and these additives and blah, blah, blah. And I want it to be cruelty free and we'll get you a nice one that feels teenager friendly, right? So she took me into the Body Shop and this really lovely lady like matched me and I loved sitting there having my like, face painted. I was like, this is so relaxing. And I got my first foundation there. And from there, that's also when I started realizing, okay, so now I need to add blush. Now I need a bit more color in my face. From 15, even to the end of 16, my makeup was not that crazy. I was actually looking at it the other day and it was very pasty almost. The foundation that I had matched my skin tone, but I'm a very like pale girl, so it matched it a little too well. I needed a little more color in there. I also was wearing blush, but I was, blush shy and I was scared. Oh my God, I already have big cheeks. Like I didn't want to, highlight them even more. So I would do like a little dab here and there. And I was very like conservative with how much makeup I put on. So it was really like mascara, eyebrows, pale face, tiniest bit of blush, and then like a lip gloss. I also want to add through these like phases of makeup. I looked pale, I looked orange. At points I had ginger eyebrows. It was honestly a mess. There wasn't a point, I would say, before I was 17 years old that my makeup looked good. But it was the thing that helped me go to school, feel more confident. And honestly, it was the thing that people kind of knew me by. There were a lot of people in my school, but not a lot of people wore a full beat to school. So I really stood out because of it. And I did like that a little bit. I didn't like the negative attention, obviously, and I did get that, but I did enjoy the fact that people knew me as somebody that took extra effort into my appearance and liked to pamper myself in a way. However, as I got older and older, the comments started to hit me a bit more and they started to affect my confidence. I actually remember a really specific one. It was year 11 and we had like a COVID prom. So it was literally like some pizza in a hall and shit music. And I remember I got all dressed up and I looked really cute looking back. Like, I obviously wasn't a fabulous look, but I did my own makeup, I did my own hair. My friend came over and got ready with me, and I was so excited. And, the guy I liked was there, and I was hoping, like, I could talk to him and all this stuff. And I remember being at prom and being so, like, happy and feeling so good and confident in myself. And I was having a bad breakout at the time, but I felt like, oh, I've mastered it so well. And I was watching Love Island and I was just really feeling myself. And I remember leaving that prom to go to a dinner. And one of the boys stopped me and he said, "Why are you wearing so much makeup? You know it looks awful, right?" And I was shell shocked. It was genuinely like, and for an insecure girl, it genuinely feels like the world is crashing down. I mean this with peace and love as well. Like, this guy, like, I had no interest in him. I didn't even know him. We weren't friends. In fact, like, he ended up causing me more grief later down the line that we don't even need to talk about. But this guy wasn't the pinnacle of beauty, and yet he was standing there telling me that I looked awful after I had spent all afternoon feeling myself. I want to add as well, I think we were in 30-degree heat, so my makeup had probably melted off a little bit. But I was feeling myself and I felt confident and I was dancing and I was happy. And yet this guy's like stupid comment had honestly made my world like fall apart. I was so devastated. I felt so ugly from that point on. I remember going into that dinner, I had no confidence, and there was some shit going down on that dinner. Like, there were things that were affecting me and I couldn't even really think about it because I was so consumed by the fact that, like, my makeup looked so bad and everybody at this table thinks I look awful and now I'm the worst looking person here and this is meant to be prom, I'm meant to look good. And I just remember it like breaking me for the rest of the night. One comment just completely, I was, I'd lost all confidence. And that wasn't even the first or last time that happened to me. I'd had bits and pieces at school whilst people had said things to me. But then I really realized another shift going into sixth form. So after my prom, which was in year 11, I moved into sixth form. I started wearing eyeliner. I started sometimes having a couple false lashes in there. Not like this, not crazy, like a couple little attachable ones or whatever. And whilst people now had kind of gotten used to me wearing makeup, their comments had shifted. I feel like the comments from people at school previously were almost kind of sprinkled in curiosity, right? Why are you wearing so much makeup? Like, why do you look like that? Why do you look different? Why are you doing this? Is there a reason? Whilst they asked and I didn't love it, like, they would say it to my face. Moving into sixth form, things completely shifted. Even though people, yes, had got used to me, it also became people kind of knew that you shouldn't say these things to people's faces anymore. And so instead, it happened behind my back. I want to add, it never happened really with girls. It never really happened with girls. And you would really think that girls would have more of an opinion on it, or, more of a take because maybe they wore makeup or maybe they were very against makeup. But it was always the guys at my school that seemed to have a problem with the way that my face was. I really didn't understand why they cared that, one day my foundation was too pasty and the next day I actually had a good shade match. As I got older, I definitely got better. And like I said, I think that by the time I was 17, my makeup at school was really, like, decent. Even looking back at photos now from like 3 years ago when I was in sixth form, it really wasn't that bad. And I think that because it wasn't as light as it used to be, that's what sparked conversations again. But this time I wasn't involved. And that was an interesting change for me. And whilst these questions and judgments had shifted from being, fired at me to fired at other people and opinions on me, my relationship with makeup had wildly changed. Makeup went from something more than just covering up my acne or feeling pretty. It went to something of like self-care and putting genuine effort into myself and enjoying it every morning, looking forward to putting on my makeup and trying a different eyeliner style, or adding less blush today and just seeing how it works out, or let me try out this lip liner, that I just got. And I really started to enjoy the, like, almost artistic side of it. Like, I enjoyed painting my face and just feeling like I was making myself somewhat of like a work of art. I was creating the version of myself that I wanted people to see, and I was so happy to do it every morning. I didn't care about waking up early to do it. I loved feeling like I could go into school and feel not only beautiful but confident and genuinely empowered. Like, I know a lot of people scoff when they hear that, and when they hear girls talk about makeup and say they're empowered, because we should just feel empowered in our own skin. But it gave me an extra confidence. There were times that my makeup was quite harsh or my liner was quite thick, and I remember talking to my boyfriend about it and saying, like, when my makeup looked different, how did you feel about me? And he did say you found me more intimidating, and I kind of wanted that at the time. Like, I wanted people to look at me and, yeah, be like, oh, she's pretty, but also go, oh, like, she means business. She's someone that maybe we should, watch what we say around. And obviously they did. I mean, they didn't say anything to me. They were probably too scared at this point, and maybe, my makeup plan had worked. However, they had started still talking about me, but like behind my back. And like I said, it was boys. So a lot of guys would talk about me, and I know the boys in my school used to rate people. The boys in my sixth form used to rate people, which is so crazy to me. Obviously, number one, it wasn't like all of the boys, but also kind of wild that they like cared enough to sit there and go, what about Rachel? Oh, she's a 3 out of 10. Like, I don't know, like, it's just kind of wild. And don't get me wrong, like, what they said wasn't necessarily like crazy negative. They weren't horrible about me. But their gripe with me, but their problem was always that she wears too much makeup. I don't get the makeup. I don't get the hair. I don't get the heels, which we'll also get into. After makeup, and kind of felt like I had expanded my makeup to the limit. And I also had started buying like more expensive makeup that I had to replenish less because it would just run out less. I found stuff that was maybe more like worthwhile. I migrated into like also doing my hair because, my hair, I mean, this is not a good example because my hair actually looks shit right now. But for example, when you have your makeup done nicely, to have shit hair kind of doesn't make sense. You want the whole image, right? So I started putting rollers in my hair or curling my hair before school. And then I started wearing heels, and I started wearing like bracelets on my wrists and earrings in my ears, and I had like 3 piercings, so I would wear matching like pearl studs across my ears, and I loved doing it. I loved kind of like curating this image before I went to school and going like, how do I want to do my like jewelry today? How do I want to come across? Do I want to look more intimidating? Do I want to look more soft and feminine? Like, how do I want to do this? And so I could kind of stood out more because I had my whole look done, and people were either like really supportive of it, like, yes girl, you walk into sixth form at 7 a.m. in those heels, or they were very much like, I don't get it, like, why are you doing this to yourself, who are you trying to impress? And to be fair, I'm sure my click clack clacking down the hallway got tiring after a while, but it like really again like started this journey. I talked about makeup starting my femininity journey, but this was what was like making me hyper feminine. I think a lot of young women go through a phase in their childhood where they don't like the color pink, and they don't want to wear dresses, and they don't want to wear skirts, and they want to, I don't want to be too girly, kind of, because you want to seem cooler, right? You want girls to like you, want guys to like you want to be more appealing to everyone. So almost choosing a more androgynous approach works better at that time. But I think a lot of women, when they turn 17, 18, 19, maybe even 16, start figuring out that like, oh, I actually miss being feminine. I want to wear pink. Like, I want to do makeup. I want to do my hair nicely. This is obviously not for everyone. Like, there are girls that were like tomboys from the start and continue to be so, and that's so valid. And maybe some women feel feminine when they don't wear makeup and feel like makeup actually masks some of their feminine features. That's so valid. But at least for me, I felt like I had tried to please people when I was a kid, when I was so young, like when I was 3 or 4 or even 2, I loved wearing dresses. I had princess crowns. I wanted to be a princess. I was the most like girly girl you could ever imagine. I was the only girl in my family. And so you know, everybody kind of gave me that princess treatment. So I was like obnoxiously girly, like you had thrown up a pink rainbow over everything. And then when I got to like 11, I got conscious of it. Even though I was wearing makeup to cover up my acne, I was aware that like pink is babyish now. It's not cool. Like maybe I need to wear black and wear like, you know, less feminine stuff. And I'm not going to wear dresses and skirts anymore because, oh, that's too girly. And so I feel like my journey with makeup also brought me back to like femininity and feeling feminine. Not only did I enjoy having the effort put into my hair, my makeup, my nails, my, you know, my heels, I also liked the fact that people now view me as very girly. People would say it to me like, oh, you're very girly, Aimee. If you were a color, Aimee, you'd be pink. And I fucking loved it. I was like, absolutely, this is who I am. I've always had this really strong feminine energy. So to feel like I was masking it for a few years and then coming back into my own, like I said, was very empowering and very exciting. I think a lot of women repress their feminine energy in order to either appeal to men, to seem like they're not like the other girls, or to just feel more like the norm. And I promise you, like, girls will come back around. Okay, a lot of girls will come back around. The girls that maybe did raise a little eyebrow to me when I had a lot of makeup on now are wearing just as much makeup as me. You know, everybody ends up kind of coming back to either their like feminine or masculine energy. Don't get me wrong, I feel like people have a good mix of both, but for me, I definitely feel more feminine than masculine, like, and I always wanted to show that. I want to add as well, like, my teachers at school definitely gave me weird looks for the way I looked as well, you know. I had teachers telling me to take out my earrings. What the fuck was I doing with my feet? Why have I got heels on at 7 a.m? Why is my hair like that? You know, questioning me. But at 17 and 18, I'd finally developed this confidence of like, you know what? This is who I am. This is who I'm going into the adult world looking like. This is how I want to express myself, you know? And everybody else just has to be okay with that because it's not harming them. I remember one teacher, she worked in like the reception area, and I was going for an orthodontic appointment because at the time I had braces. I don't anymore, but I did when I was 17 and I was mortified by them. Don't get me wrong, I hated them. They were very much cramping my look, but I had a appointment and I went to like her desk-ish area to say, you know, do you mind letting me out of school? I got an appointment. And I had these, they weren't that long, but they came to about here, these longish golden earrings, and I had like a couple little lashes in and some lipstick, and my hair was like very like straight down, and I had my little heels on. And I remember she looked at me like this, and she looked me up and down and up and down, and she's like, why have you got all that makeup on? Where do you think you're going? And I remember at the time feeling rage because it was one thing for my peers to judge me on my face, but for a 6-year-old woman to look at me and ask me why I've got all this makeup on when it just genuinely like wasn't her business. Also, by sixth form, you were allowed to wear makeup, so it kind of was just like a why are you even asking me question. But I remember just saying to her, because I want to. Because I want to. And honestly, I like to this day, I'm glad I said that. That was the best response I could have given. I didn't over explain myself. I didn't say, oh, maybe I've got a party later, or oh, I just want to look nice, or I'm covering my acne. I said, because I want to. And that's kind of how I've like lived my life ever since. From that day forward, why do I wear so much makeup? Why does my hair look like that? Why am I wearing those clothes? Because I want to. Why am I eating that food? Because I want to, okay? As long as it's not harming anybody else, it shouldn't be a topic of conversation. That woman as well was obviously just pressed, like, she was just miserable with her life, and honestly, I never liked her from the start, so fuck you. Just kidding, I'll bleep out the name. I don't want the smoke. I don't need that. But anyway, like, honestly, fuck her. My life's continued and hers did too after that day, you know? But since then, I've been able to exercise now without makeup. I do not go to the gym with makeup on. Are you crazy? If I'm having a particularly bad, like, acne day, I might put one of those flower patches on, but that's about it. But I go to the gym without makeup now. My skin's improved so much. It's not perfect. I still have a lot of acne scarring. You can't obviously see it right now, but I've still got, like, a couple problems going on, but they're definitely better than they were. And I'm kind of appreciating my skin and my craft a little more as time goes on. To kind of wrap this up, I think that makeup should be a tool to garner and create confidence. I don't think it needs to be a mask for anyone, although if you need that support at the start, I don't see a problem with it. It was annoying that I became dependent on makeup because I shouldn't have been. And I was very young. And I look back on photos and I was beautiful and I was natural and there was no problem with my skin. I was a teenager. And it's sad that I felt dependent on it. But at the same time, it's what got me through school. It's what made me feel like I could walk in and not have my head hanging and my hair covering my face because I was so nervous about people seeing this spot on my cheek. And I did have cystic acne at one point. It was severe. In fact, it had marked my face to the point I looked like I had a Joker smile, you know? And if you're a woman, you know that acne on the lower parts of your face are hormonal and very difficult to fix unless you want to go on the pill. And my mom didn't really want me on the pill at fucking 13, you know? I ended up trying that at like 16. But even still, it was very hard for me to manage and balance. And so makeup really worked as a tool that made me feel like I could go into school and I could face society and not feel ashamed. If you want to be mad about that or you want to say to me that young girls shouldn't wear makeup, then maybe we should work on building a society that doesn't make it so women feel like their value is in the way that they look. But at the end of the day, that is the society that we live in. And whilst I'm a young girl, of course, I'm going to try and fit in. Makeup now for me has really been about highlighting my like natural features. I love kind of highlighting the fullness in my cheeks and making myself look young. I love actually just lining my lips the way that they are. I love adding a cute lash to kind of make my eyes look a little bigger because my eyes are quite small. But it has become something of self-care now to me. And listen, if you're watching this out there and you feel like you depend on makeup to feel beautiful, don't, okay? You're already beautiful. You already look incredible. Women, men, we don't need to hide our features. If makeup is something that helps you get out of bed though in the morning and helps you walk out the house and be able to order a coffee without being worried about what the barista thinks about your fucking spot on your chin, that's also okay. And everybody's journey and everybody's experience in like feeling secure in themselves and also in how they look is different, okay? It's not the same. There were people in my school that did have acne and never wore makeup, and that worked for them. And I'm so happy that they were so secure in themselves, and I'm so happy that they felt like they could go in like that. But at the end of the day, I didn't. And everybody is different. And I did put a lot of emphasis in the way that I looked because I wanted to feel pretty and I wanted to be regarded as somebody that looked good. And that's also okay. You're allowed to want to look good. People don't need to punish each other for putting in a little extra effort. I hate the idea of overdressing or, oh, she's done too much there, or, oh, she needs to relax, or, she's a bit done up. What's the problem? What's the problem with wanting to look extra nice? I don't think that there's ever going to be a problem with it. I think everybody just needs to do what's right for them and move the fuck on. Thank you for watching this episode, guys. Let me know if these kind of like one topic episodes are something you want me to continue to do. I've kind of been aiming, like I said, to keep my episodes a bit longer because that seems to be what the people want, and that's totally fine with me. Thank you for the support on the podcast so far. I really appreciate every single one of you. And I hope that you go out today feeling beautiful, whether you've got makeup on, whether you don't have makeup on, and I hope that you feel empowered and secure. And I hope you have a wonderful week, guys. Mwah, mwah. Love you.